relatively representable.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
All right.
Nice. Okay. I guess I can put you over here. Oh, we're gonna get this infinite. Oh, this is good enough.
Okay.
All right. So I wanted to show you what I've been working on. And I call it the deep zoom debugger. It is to use to visualize the execution state of a program. I have three different programs. One is reverse a string. One is Fibonacci sequence using recursion, and then I also have Fibonacci sequence using a while loop.
Okay.
The programs are written in a language I called it the play programming language. That's not super important. Like the programming language is very, very basic. It has very, very limited feature set. So it's not trying to be a cool programming language or anything. The main thing I'm working on is this debugger concept.
Okay.
And whenever you execute a program, I'll show you how I execute a program. So I go over to the play language project and I can say run this Fibonacci sequence recursion program. And it'll run it. It'll show you the answer or whatever its printout was. If there was a printout, it'll show it to you in yellow. And then the other messages are just telling you what the compiler did. One of the things it does is it creates this history file, which contains a snapshot of the state of the program at every single step of the program.
Like the frame, the stack.
Yeah, so I actually have I have a text-based debugger.
Okay.
Which can take the program and then step through it, just like a normal debugger.
Okay.
You see, so the middle is the stack frame. So main called fib with 7, and then fib with 7 called fib with 6, and so forth, right?
Okay.
So you can step forwards and backwards like you can with Python tutor. So that's the one. That's a big piece of this. But I made a visual debugger which can do this. And this is the deep zoom debugger. So you see, this is like a Google view sort of concept.
Okay. Is this similar to the other thing that
it's similar to the file browsers. The
exactly.
file is very similar to that. So, but this is you're visualizing the execution of the program, and the main function is always the entry point of the program in my language.
Okay.
So you are always supposed to make a main function. When you run the program, it's going to call the main function. So this is like, it's not an actual line of code in your program, but it's implied that somebody is going to call your main function.
Okay.
You drill into it, and then you get the source code of your main function. It'll show you there's line numbers over here. It'll show you the intermediate steps that it's done, and show you the intermediate values. So it tells you, oh, this evaluated fib with 7, and the answer was 13. If you drill down, then it can show you the execution of fib with argument 7. And this is what it did. It doesn't actually show you every line of source code. It only shows you the lines of source code that were executed.
Oh, okay.
Which is, at first I thought that was weird, but now I kind of like it. So we'll see. I don't know exactly. Another option might be show the other lines of code that were skipped, but show them in a different color or something. But right now I just showed only the lines of code that were executed. So you can see, well, it'll sort of show you the values in the relevant places, what the values were at those points in time. If there's a function call, it will show you both the input and the output of the function call. If there's a return statement, it'll show you the return value that the return statement returned. If there's if there's a assignment, which there isn't right now, but I could make one. If I wanted to extract this as a variable, I want to do that, I can then rerun this program. Oh, I just named it wrong. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, and so it runs it. It generates another history file, and I'm going to, because the debugger is in a separate project right now, I have to copy the stuff over. So I'll copy both the history file over and the program over, and then reload the debugger.
What is the history file? Did the debugger generate a history file?
Running the program generates the history file.
Running the program, okay.
Yeah. And now it shows you whenever there's a variable assignment, it'll show you what value got assigned to it as a result of that assignment. So that you see that right here.
Oh, okay. So this is like frame based, right? As long as you have a new frame, you see everything inside of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You can think of this as you're zooming into a frame. Yeah. You're zooming into a frame of a call stack.
Okay.
And yeah, zooming. You can keep zooming. We're at n equals 5 now, and n equals 5 is going to call fib4 and fib3, etc., right? So
okay.
We can zoom in even more. And finally, you get to the base case where it just returns 1.
Okay. Interesting.
That's the concept, and it's very different from normal debuggers, I think, because
yeah, I think it's very useful for debugging a recursive thing, because this is very visual, especially for recursive, because you can like drill into what's going on inside.
Yeah.
And this is visually making it more accessible to people who didn't like say understand the recursion.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. It could be used as a teaching tool for recursion, because it really demonstrates what's happening.
So I guess the mechanism of this is like the input is the program and the history. So the history will say, hey, which branch did I run the program?
I'll go through the history file with you, but before that, I also want to show you like the Fibonacci sequence with implemented using a loop, just for comparison.
Oh yeah, that would be interesting because it's gonna be inside the same frame.
Yes, exactly. so it's gonna be quite different. So I'm gonna change this to fib loop. Okay, so this is drill down. It still has a fib function, but now it looks like this. So this is a while loop.
Oh. Okay.
And as you can see, the body of the while loop just get pasted over and over again.
Oh,
I kind of was debating whether I like this or not, because the alternative would have been and this I got a lot of inspiration from Brett Victor's talk where he showed a demo like this kind of partially copied his thing. So he showed a demo where you go through the lines, and then on the side you show the values of the things as you're assigning values to them. So I think this idea is very good for learners. Like it's a visual thing. There's no time component. We've flattened out the time component. You don't have to step to see the change in state, right? It's more like a math. You're solving a math problem, and then this is just like scratch paper values that you're putting on the paper. So you just read the thing from top to bottom.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to make it more visual, like a loop, like a photo gallery that you can click to the next and then go to the next, and then you will see like the global variable on top getting changed. I don't know, but this is cool too. This is more obvious, and you can see the whole thing, which is good.
Yeah, with the having to click, I'm trying really hard to avoid having to click through to advance the state. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because but what Brett Victor did was he didn't have this repeating of the loop body. He had one loop, but then these values are changing in the next iteration, then he would have like fib next equal 3 in the next iteration, and fib 1 equal 2, etc. So he'll have these lines, and then he has another bar, and then he has more values for the next iteration after that, and so forth.
So he's showing the iteration divided by the bars.
Yeah,
so
divided. He's doing like this, but my thought was that, well, that can easily get very, very long if your loop iterates many times.
Because you are going horizontally.
You're going, and also once it goes so far, then you don't see the lines of code over here anymore, because you're having to scroll all the way to the right to see these values, unless you make these like sticky to the value. I guess you could do that.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Instead of scroll, you can click, and maybe you can like jump to the loop 63 or something like that.
That's true, but I kind of really trying to hang on to the idea that this is almost like I'm trying to make an analogy to a physical piece of paper that's infinitely large.
Oh, okay. I see.
So I don't want there to be an interaction in order to advance the time. I want it to be just you can see everything right in front of you, and all you're doing is looking closer and looking farther away.
Okay. Oh, I see.
But this is still design phase. We could still change this. Like I am open to different ideas. So yeah, so you're saying like have like a button here.
Yeah.
To advance the body to the next iteration of the loop, and then all these values are gonna change when you click here.
Yeah, I guess interestingly, like you're talking about concept of time, because we talk about like the concept of it's like frames, but we don't say like the time of the frames. Like there's not like a timing difference, but this is like obviously a time issue or a time situation.
Well, we do this should be extended to time because when you're dealing with UIs, you're gonna have user events, right? And those happen in time. This is also takes a lot of inspiration from the Chrome DevTools CPU profiler, which we used a lot recently, right? So it's got this screenshot timeline at the top, right? It's got this screenshot timeline here, and then down here it's got a flame graph, and each vertical slice of the frame graph kind of represents a point in execution time of the program. And then for each point in execution time, there's a corresponding screenshot that you can see what the screen looks like at that point in time. And I want to eventually implement that as well, but I wanted the timeline to be vertical instead of horizontal because I want to actually show the lines of code. Whereas that tool doesn't.
Okay, I see. So because you want to see the lines of code, but how do you represent the frame though? You're like, oh, currently I'm inside this frame.
Well, yeah. So then I think that still works, because if you're looking at here, I could have a timeline. Whoops. I could have a timeline next to, well, I guess there wouldn't be anything here, but so there'd just be a timeline here, right?
Yeah.
And the we can think of this section as subdivided in time.
Okay. So basically, you're just turning the not Google, the DevTool profiler like sideways.
Yeah, kind of. But then there's weird things. I think I'll have to deal with some, because if I want the time to be divided up evenly, it's actually a pretty big challenge to do that, and I'm not sure whether I should do that or not. Like if I want to say this is 10 milliseconds per tick, well, it might be difficult to achieve that because some of the lines take longer than other lines to execute, right?
Yeah, because it's async.
It could be async, but regardless of whether it's async, like maybe line number 6, or maybe not even different executions of line number 6 can have a different time value. So this might be like 20 milliseconds, and then this might be 15 milliseconds. This line might take 1 millisecond.
Well, buddy, if you record all the time, the actual time that takes to execute, each line, then you can map it back to the timeline.
Yes, you can. I'm just saying, if I were trying to respect the evenness of the ticks, then like this would need to be a box that's 20 times higher, taller than this one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what I guess that's the same as the DevTool CPU profiler.
That's true. I could. I'm just curious. That might look kind of weird though. But maybe that's an option that can be turned on and off because
Okay.
if this guy is 20 times taller than this guy, you may not be able to see this line at all. So then you're only seeing, so you're like seeing, oh, that, and then like that, and then seeing that, right?
Yeah.
That this one is too thin for you to read the text, and
That
maybe if you're trying to work on the performance, that's what you want. But if not, then maybe that's not what you want.